Okay, so today, if you look at the steps that we're doing today, and you look at all that stuff, phones put away, if you have a phone out, last warning for phones. Okay, so if you look at the steps I have up here, which you have on your paper, the first sheet of paper, they look almost identical to what we did yesterday, the day before that, and last week, right? I just added one new step, step 4 for binomials and step 9 for trinomials, okay? That's the only step. And that step we've done before, not on this stuff, but last chapter. So it's not necessarily new, okay? So here we go. Before we get into that though, we need to, we're gonna go over, so today what we're doing, so literally what I did was the last notes you have say factoring there. And I just swapped it out with solving, okay? It's pretty much the same type of thing, okay? Today we're solving though. So we're gonna have multiple answers. Remember when you guys had 2 answers? It's that type of thing, okay? So first thing, fundamental theorem of algebra. What is something that's fundamental? Anything that's fundamental, what does that mean when I say fundamental? Not equal to 0. Anything that's fundamental. Like if you're an athlete and you play a sport, coach says you have good fundamentals. What does that mean if you're an athlete? Yeah, it's the basic skills, right? If it's basketball, you can dribble well, you can shoot well, right? If it's baseball, you can hit well, you can throw well, you can catch well. If it's football, you can throw well, right? You can tackle well. The basics, right? The basic theorem, so the basic rule, the theorem is a rule of algebra, says the degree equals the number of zeros or roots or solutions or x-intercepts something possesses. So what's a degree? What's a degree? It's something with the power, you're right, keep going. It's the highest exponent power. When I say degree, my hand always goes like this for 2 reasons. First reason is because it's the highest. Second reason is because it's an exponent. Exponents are up here, right? Okay. So for example, what's the degree for letter A? There you go, right? It's the highest exponent power. So we say the degree. So let's say I was going to solve letter A, which we're going to do later. How many answers should I get? Not 2. The answer should be 4 because the degree matches the number of answers I'm going to get. So when you look at a problem, you should know exactly how many answers you get. What are the answers? I don't know. We have to actually solve them. But it's going to have 4 solutions. Okay. What about letter B? 3 is the degree. And this guy's going to have 3 solutions. That's going to help us today because some of our answers, we're used to having 2 answers. Some of our answers are going to have 4, 5 answers. So how do you know if you're missing one? This helps because you can tell how many answers are you going to have. Well, if I'm doing the problem A, I should have 4 answers in the end. If I'm doing problem B, I should have 3 answers in the end. And we're going to use that to check. Okay. Okay, so the next part in the boxes are our steps. They're written right here, but they're also written in your notes. Okay, those are the steps we're going to use. Like I said, they look familiar. That's on purpose, right? That is on purpose. So that, because we used them before. All right, so let's go to the inside. Let's go to number 1 on the inside. Number 2, sorry, example number 2 on the inside of your notes. So either one, binomials or trinomials, it don't matter. They have to equal 0. Okay, that's the first step. Done, right? Check, it's already equal 0. Step 2 is it has to be in standard form. Is this guy in standard form?
No.
How do I know if it's in standard form or not? What has to be true, right? So which one should be first? That guy, negative x cubed, needs to be in first place because it's the leading. It's got the degree. So I'm going to need to move this guy up to the front here. So I got negative x to the third power. What comes next? Thank you. Plus or positive 9x squared. Some people are like, what do I put in front of the 9? Well, is it positive or negative, right? And then the last one is minus 14x equals 0. Okay. Trinomial or binomial? Try. So we're going to follow the trinomial steps. So step 1, we already got done. Equal to 0, and it's in standard form. Check. Step 2, factor out a GCF. And when I do that, the leading term has to be positive. So yeah, you're looking in the front, right? In the front, we can already tell that, hey, this guy is not positive. So I'm going to have to divide it by a -1. And then don't they also have an x? So I can divide them all by -1x. Okay. That's the GCF. GCF. I always move it in front. Some of you sometimes forget to put it in front. So now I have x squared minus 9x plus 14 equals 0. Okay, so I highlighted the inside because that's where my focus is. The outside's important, don't get me wrong, it's important. But the inside is where my focus is, right? So I did GCF, step 3 ABC. Okay. So what's A, what's B, what's C? What's A? +1. B? C? 14. The next 2 steps are find out what multiplies to be something and adds to be something else. Yep. -7 and -2 definitely are going to add up to be -9. And multiply to be +14. Okay, so bring them back in. GCF stays in the front. So I know I have a -7 and a -2, right? I know I'm going to have that. I have 2 options for step 6. Step 6 says, excuse me, I could have x and x or x squared and x squared. Just regular x and regular x? Yeah, why? That's right. You're why? Because this power right here, right? If this was 4, it would be squared and squared. But because this is 2 in the yellow here, that's why I highlighted in yellow, so that I remind myself, okay, so when I put x's in here, they're just x to the first power and x to the first power. They don't need squareds. Okay. Step 7, bottoms up. What do I divide by? 1, so is that going to change anything? Skip that step. Difference of squares in the parentheses. In the parentheses there, are there difference of squares? Let's see here. I got this guy here, and I got this guy here. Yeah. 2 reasons why they're not difference of squares. Yeah, they're not on my table here. 7 and 2 are not on my table here. That's the one reason. And what's the other reason? There's no squareds. Yeah. It's got to have a squared, and it's got the minus in the middle, right? The minus here, it works that, but these 2 numbers here aren't on my list, my list of perfect squares. And this guy here, not squared. Okay. So how many terms? So the last step says set each factor term, because that's where we stopped. This is where we stopped. This is what you put in for delta math the last time, right? We stopped right there. Well, there's where the next step, the solving step, is going to come in. Each of those factored terms I have to set equal to 0. How many terms do I have left here? 2 in parentheses, but don't I have a third out here? Set them each equal to 0. So I'm going to have 3 sections here. Each of these guys here, because there are 3 terms. You guys said 3 and you guys are right. This one here, this one here, and this one here, they all get an equal 0. And solve for x. So the first one, how do I get x by itself? What operation, add, subtract, multiply, divide, do I need to do? Divide, right? Yeah, divide by -1. That makes a 1. How many times does -1 go into 0? It doesn't, right? It doesn't. It's 0. Go to the next one. Add 7 to both sides. I get +7. And then the last one. Add 2 to both sides, I get +2. How many answers did I get in this question? 3 answers. I got 0, I got +7, and I got +2. All right. How many answers should I have gotten? Look at the very top, the very beginning of the problem. How many answers should I have gotten? 3. And I got them all, right? So I'm done. I know I'm done. Okay. All right. Let's go to number 3. So it doesn't matter if it's a binomial, trinomial, it needs to be equal to 0. Done. Check. Needs to be in standard form. Is this one in standard form already? Check. Now, is it a binomial or trinomial? Okay, so we're going to follow the same steps that we did for the problem we just did, okay? Factor out the GCF and the leading term needs to be a positive. So I know I'm going to need to divide by a negative. A negative, -1, -2, -3. What do I divide by? Yeah, so -1, and then you guys see that. Yeah, see that I can take out 3 powers because every one of these guys has 3 powers to give. We go the highest we can. The most amount is 3. I can't do 4 because the last guy, 8x, doesn't have 4 to give. 4x is to give. It's only got 3. Okay, so that's my GCF. So I'm going to put that in front. So I got 3x squared minus 14x plus 8 left. Okay, so again, now the next steps, I'm going to focus on the inside there. Step 3, step 4, step 5, it's going to focus in the yellow. Step 3, A, B, C. So what's A going to be? B is negative 14. C is 8. Okay. Multiply A times C. I get 24, and it's got to add up to be negative 14. So what are the two numbers that multiply to be 24 and add up to be negative 14? There you go. Negative 12 and negative 2. Let's bring it back over here. So I got a minus 12 and a minus 2. For step 6, I have two possibilities, x and x or x squared and x squared. X and x, because in the yellow, the highest is x squared. So this is going to be x and x. Bottoms up. Yes. What do I divide by? Good. We haven't done that step a lot, but it's still there. So with bottoms up, if you can divide them, divide. If you can reduce, reduce. If you can't, bottoms up. So this guy right here, 3 goes into 12 4 times. So it's just going to be x minus 4. The next one, 2/3, can't be reduced. It's already reduced. So bottoms up. 3 goes up with the x. And I keep the minus 2 or negative 2. Difference of squares is what's left inside the parentheses. Difference of squares. So some of you are saying yes, some of you are saying no, and I know what you're talking about. That guy in the middle, right? 4 is on my list, you're right. And 1 in front is on my list, you're right. And there's a minus in the middle, you're right. But what is it missing? The power, yeah, it doesn't have a squared, right? If it had a squared here, I would say absolutely difference of squares, but it's not. So we just leave it alone. Separate all 3 of my terms. I have 1 term here, 1 term here, and 1 term here. So negative 1 x to the 3rd power equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. 3x minus 2 equals 0. So I'm going to do the 2 on the right first. I'm going to leave the 1 on the left. I'll do that one last. There's a reason why I'm doing it last, and I'll explain that when we do it. So over here in the middle, the column in the middle, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Yep. And I'll talk. That's why I skipped the first one. I'll come back to it. That's a great question, and I'll answer it once I finish these other 2. Divide by 3. Remember, fractions leave as fractions unless they tell you to round. They didn't say to round, so we're leaving it. Reduce the fraction and leave it. Okay, don't change it to a decimal. Leave it unless they say round, and specifically in the question, and they didn't this time. Okay, so we have 2 answers so far, right? Remy brought up a good point. How many answers am I supposed to have in the end? 5. So where are the other 3? Yeah, right here, right? How many answers is this guy going to supply me? 3, because of that cubed, right? Isn't that the rule? The power says how many answers it's going to supply me. It's going to supply me with 3. What's going to be true about all 3 of those? They're all going to be the same. Yeah, they're going to repeat. So let me finish this, solve it. Divide by negative 1. So what times itself 3 times is going to be 0? Just 0, right? That's a great question. So for this question, I would just put a 0. So in the box here. So if I was putting this answer, I would put one box 0, one box 4, one box 2/3. Now, sometimes they'll ask you, did any of your answers repeat? Yes, this guy did, right? This guy repeated 3 times. 3 times, not 3x, 3 times. I'll put 3 times. But for delta math, you're just going to put 0, 4, and 2/3, even though it has 5 answers. And if they have a question on, there's 5 answers, why didn't you put all 5? Well, you don't have to repeat 0, 0, 0. You don't have to put 3 zeros and then 4 and then 2/3, right? So another question they might ask you is unique. They might say, use the word unique. What does unique mean? Anything that's unique, what does it mean? Different, one of a kind, right? Unique means you're not like anyone else. You guys are unique, right? Even though you might have the same name as someone else somewhere out there, maybe even on this campus, right? They're not you. You're unique, right? You're unique. Your DNA makes you unique. How many unique answers do I have here? 3, right? I have 1, I have 4, and I have 2/3. How many total answers do I have? 5. There you go, 5. Yeah. As long as you understand that, you're fine. Okay. Okay, so what I want you to do now is try number, what's the next one? 4. Do number 4 on your own. I'll give you about 5 minutes to do number 4 on your own, and then we'll do it together. So I want you to give it a try, give it a shot, see what you can do. Not always, but in this case it will be. Yeah, not always though. Actually, yeah, if it's equal to 0, yes, it'll always be 0. It depends what it's equal to. So if it's equal to 0, yeah. So in this case, yes. Okay, so if you finish, look up here. If you didn't finish, finish, and then look up here, see what you got. So I'll talk through the steps while you guys look. So the first step, GCF, or so far, sorry, first step set it equal to 0. It was already in standard form. It's a trinomial, so I follow those steps. 4, they can all be divided by 4. 4 goes into 4, 4 goes into negative 16, 4 goes into positive 16. And they all have 3 powers of x that I can take away. So 4x cubed, that leaves x squared minus 4x plus 4 in the yellow. ABC. What multiplies to be 4 and adds to be negative 4? Minus 2 and minus 2. Brought those back over here. Those aren't difference of squares here because there's no squared and because 2 is not on my list of perfect squares. Okay. Set them all equal to 0. 0, 2, and 2. So how many unique answers do I get? Yeah, just 2 unique answers, right? What's one of them? 0. What's the other one? 2. Yeah, so just 2 unique answers. How many total answers do we get? 5. Yeah, 5. So we got, how many zeros did I get? 3. How many 2s did I get? 2. Okay. Yeah, Alexis. So yeah, so that's the great point. So let's say the GCF, like what'd you do the GCF? What was your GCF? So you didn't even divide by 4? For solving, you will get the same answer. For solving, you'll be okay. The only part with the GCF that you really got to be careful with is when it says factoring. If the answer said factor, then your answer would be off. But since you solved it, you'll get the same answer. Yeah. Yep. All you put is 0, 1 box, 2, another box. Because they only want the unique answers. They don't want the total answers. Because if I would have put the total answers, I'd put 0 3 times, 0, 0, 0. And then in the last 2 boxes, I'd put 2, 2, right? Those are the total answers. That's still right, yeah. I don't know if Delta Math will mark it right, but on a test, I'd give you full credit. Yeah, for sure. Because it's right. It's not wrong. But for Delta Math, I think you only have to put the unique answers. So 0 and 2. Like I said, it's not wrong. I'm not going to mark you wrong. On a test or a quiz, I would not mark you wrong. I'd give you full credit. But on Delta Math, they might make you do another problem because it shouldn't. That's a great question. Let me check. Let me check before you guys leave. Let me check to see. Okay. Equations equal to 0. Standard form. Is it in standard form? Yes, it is. Binomial, trinomial. Binomial. GCF. Well, definitely what? Definitely 2 and definitely should be negative, right? Because the leading term needs to be positive. They don't each have x in common, so I can't do x. So like Alexis was saying, do I have to get the correct GCF every time? For solving, no, you'll eventually get the right answer. But for factoring, yeah, it's important that you factor it as much as you can. So 2 definitely goes into 36 and 100. And 4 actually goes in, I think 4 is the biggest. So I'm going to divide by negative 4. Okay, so when I divide by negative 4, I get a negative 4 in the front. I get 9 keeps x squared minus 25 equals 0. Okay. Step 2 done. Step 3 is what I have left inside difference of squares. It is. It is difference of squares. It hits all my check marks. The check marks for difference of squares, first of all, the first check mark says the first number and the last number are perfect squares. Yeah, they're both on my list. The second check mark, is it a squared? Yeah. And then the last check mark, is it a minus in between? So because it hits all of those, it's difference of squares. So we got to figure out, okay, so how are we going to break this down? So yeah, we're going to take, what's the square root of 9? Sorry, I said it, 3, right? It's got an x, so it needs an x there too. And then 5, right? Yep, 4 always goes in front. So now how am I going to write the new separated 3x minus 5 and 3x plus 5? Because they each get one of these guys. They each get one of these guys. They each get a 3x and they each get a 5. One of them has a minus, one of them has a plus. What if I put the plus first? Can I put the plus first and the minus second? Yeah, that doesn't matter. Yep, order doesn't matter for multiplication. Okay, so now I got 3 guys here. I got -4 in front. I got 3x minus 5 in the middle. And I have 3x plus 5 out there. I'm going to set each of those equal to 0 because I don't have difference of squares anymore. So -4 equals 0. 3x minus 5 equals 0. Because everything there, the GCF even gets, I'll explain why. Yeah, it doesn't look right, and I'll explain why in a second, but you always put it out there. So over here, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Divide by 3, divide by 3. Keep as a fraction unless they tell you they want you to change it to a decimal. Round it. They didn't say that, so I'm going to keep that as a fraction. Divide by 3, divide by 3. Wait, I put 2x plus, this one, yeah, I messed up here. I put 2 subtractions, sorry. Change that in your notes if you copied mine. This one should be a plus here. So it should be -5 and -5. And then the front. What's weird about the front, the first part? It kind of looks weird. What are we missing? Yeah, it's got no x, right? So if it's got no x, how do I solve it? The answer is you can't. So is -4 equal to 0? No, they're not the same number, right? So this one's not going to give us an answer. Do we have 2 answers? Done. So yeah, that's why. It's good habit. It's good habit because most of the time they'll have an x there. So that's why I did it, just force a habit. But it's a good habit. Yeah. If you already got your 2 answers and you're only going to have 2 answers, guess what? You don't need a third answer. Okay. All righty. Okay, so I want you to tape. Let's see, tape's right here. I think there's some tape in the back. So if you guys got the tape in the back, you pass it around to everyone so we can tape in our notes.